Hi everyone, welcome to this workshop, Crack Your CAP Interviews. This is Ayush and I'll be taking another 45 minutes to 1 hour with you and talk about exactly how to crack your CAP interviews. Even if you have got calls from not just CAP but other B schools, this is going to be equally beneficial because we are talking about B school interviews and it's going to be no different, be it college A, B, C, X, Y, Z or whatsoever. So let's wait for a couple of minutes, in order to let other people join in with us. And yes, then we'll start with the session. Meanwhile, if there is anyone, who has any sort of a question, feel free to ask and yeah, put it in the comment section and we will continue with the session in just 2 minutes. Okay, so let's get started with the session of today. How to crack your CAP interviews, right? Essentially, we'll be talking about a lot of things in this session, but few things which are very basic yet very important. We took a similar session earlier in previous week with another topic of the workshop, how to ace your B school interviews. So if you are someone who is watching this workshop, this session for the very first time, and in that scenario, please go to my previous session as well. That is how to ace your B school interviews. That is equally going to help you. And today I'm going to bring the element of Shark Tech India in order to, I'm going to bring some humor, in the next 30-45 minutes, but essentially walk you through few very important interview tips as well as WAT and GD tips, right? So let's continue with the session. Let's go forward, crack your CAP interviews. By the way, tomorrow we are launching our workshop Special 26, right? What is this Special 26, right? See, no matter which background you have, educational background, could be engineering, could be commerce, could be management, could be anything. No matter what sort of, work experience or fresher background you have, whether you are a fresher, whether you have work experience in IT industry, FMCG industry, so on and so forth, right? There are always going to be few specific questions that could be asked to you, given your profile and given that you're setting for a B school, right? Tomorrow, we are going to have a 4-hour workshop in which we will talk about these 26, top 26, or let's say special 26 questions that could be asked to you in your B school interview, right? And I'll help you structure your answers in this workshop. I'll help you understand what to speak, what not to speak, as an answer to this particular question, and also walk you through a lot of VAT and GD tips altogether. So this is the workshop that we are going to conduct tomorrow. If you have already registered for it, that's great. But again, if you're not registered and if you think, that at a cost of $399 only, you would actually want to add a lot of value in your life and be able to increase your chances to get into the dream B school, still you have the opportunity. Okay, so essentially, what we would be covering, in the workshop. Let's go through, these few of these, special 26 questions, and then we will continue with what we have for today's session, right? So we will be talking about self-awareness questions. A very, the very basic question, but still very important. Tell me something about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses, right? So on and so forth. So there would be questions around self-awareness. There would be questions around MBA related. Why do you want to pursue MBA? Do you want to pursue MBA in marketing, strategy, ops, or you haven't decided it yet? So on and so forth, right? Career related questions. What are short-term goals, long-term goals? Why did you pursue engineering? Why are you pursuing, let's say, MBA after, you did not pursue a BBA, so on and so forth. Why do you have low grades? And if you have, year gap, why do you really have it, right? So these are the questions again, that will be tackling tomorrow. Job related questions. Why do you want to leave your job? Why did you leave your job? Okay, in order to prepare for CAT or any other examination. What did you learn from your project, so on and so forth, and other questions on hobbies, extracurricular, even situational based questions. So these are the type of questions that we'll be going through tomorrow in my 4-hour workshop, Special Chapter, right? Cool. This is the link, MBAtrek.com/special Chabbis cap cracker. At the cost of only rupees 399, you will be able to add a lot of value to your B school preparation, right? Especially camp. Okay. So that is something, which we wanted to talk about in the beginning of the session. But now let's continue with the Shark Tank model of, interview preparation. And essentially, let's start with a framework, that you should be knowing when you actually sit for any sort of an interview, right? So let's start with the 4C framework of interview. What exactly, is 4C? If you're someone who's preparing for, these B school interviews, definitely you would be going through basic concepts of marketing, finance, operations, and there you would have seen probably 5C model, right? Or 4P model, product, price, place, and promotion, right? This is something different from, those particular frameworks. So the 4C framework talks about number one, confidence. See, I have given a lot of interviews. I have taken a lot of interviews, for these B school students, right? Especially, people from a lot of IIMs and other top B schools. The number one thing to crack any interview is the confidence with which you speak, of whatever you speak, right? Because confidence is something which gives positive vibes, which, gives the recruiter or the interviewer the clarity that whatever you're speaking, you're pretty sure of what you're speaking and why you're speaking that particular thing. So confidence speaks a lot about who you really are. Okay, so that is number one element. The person who would be sitting right in front of you could be, and would be, by the way, a B school professor. They would be having 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience, let's say, right? But trust me, there is no difference between you and them. You need to go with this mindset that there is no difference, right? Except for experience and age. Okay. Because unless you believe in yourself, unless you see that even someday I would be at this particular level and I need to have this confidence at so early career, at early point of my life, unless you have that confidence, you won't be able to actually crack it. Okay. So have, the first C, confidence, while you're actually giving your interviews, right? Number two, content. So confidence is how you speak, but content is what you speak. You cannot, just have bullet points in your mind and, just go in the interview room or, join the Zoom link, assuming, the interviews are happening online, right? And you cannot just go with unprepared content, because the number one thing, or one of the top things, on which you would be rated is the quality of your content. Okay, what exactly are you speaking? If the question is, why do you want to pursue MBA? And your content is nowhere related to why are you pursuing, why are you going for an MBA program? That is a bad answer, right? No matter how confidently you speak, whatever you're speaking, but if you're not confident and, if you don't have the right content, that is again wrong. Okay, so have the right confidence, have the right content. Now, once you have both of them, what is next thing that you should go for? That is clarity. So content is what you speak, but the clarity is why do you speak that? So there could be a lot of follow-up questions on any question, that is asked to you. So for example, the question that is asked to you is, tell me something about yourself. You say that my hobby is reading novels, reading books. Why do you actually read books? The clarity. Okay, you say, that, my company was working on, let's say ab initio tool rather than some other tool. So why exactly your company was working on this particular tool? Okay, I want to, if the question is which domain do you want to take as majors during your MBA, and you say marketing. So there should be a clarity on why marketing, right? So, and so on and so forth. I can go with numerous examples, but let's, I think you have got the clarity of what exactly, I want to talk about. So clarity is why exactly I'm speaking this particular thing. And finally, something that covers all these three things all together inside an umbrella is communication. Okay. Communication is not about, not taking breaks or speaking very fluently or, speaking very, powerful words in vocabulary. That is a very good, or again, a very powerful element, of communicating with anyone. But communication is about, and maybe you can always remember this, whatever am I speaking, whatever I'm talking about, are you able to understand it or not? That is communication. The thoughts that have generated in my brain, am I able to communicate it using my words, and are they able to be captured by your brain? That is communication. Communication is not about speaking very, or not just about speaking very fluently, and other factors on which we think that that is communication, right? So always remember, these are the 4 C's of cracking any interview. You should speak confidently, you should know what to speak, content, you should know why exactly are you speaking that particular thing, that is clarity, and finally the combination of what do you speak, why do you speak, and how do you speak, overall communication, right? So these are, this is the 4C framework which you should always remember whenever you go for any interview, not just something, an interview that you have tomorrow for your B school, but an interview that you will have even inside, when you join a B school and when you sit for internships and final placements, right? So that's there. Now, let's start with the Shark Tank, humor around this. So, and with every sort of a meme, that I have over here, I'm going to help you understand a lesson, right? Learn a lesson of how to structure answers or what not to do, while answering a question. So let's look at this particular, example. The interviewer says that, tell me your biggest strength and weakness. And you say, that I'm too detailed oriented, and that is why I take time to finish my work. I won't name any of the institutes or any of the companies, but I know a lot of mentors who say that, just speak about your weakness, which is a derivation, right, of your strength. Trust me, if you are too detailed oriented and, which you think that is your strength, but because of which you take too much time to finish your work, being too much of a detailed oriented is actually your weakness, not your strength. Strength is something which stays independent of the weakness, right? So what you're doing over here is you are actually creating a loop in your answer. Okay, you cannot relate strengths and weaknesses. So my idea to you is not, just talk about that. Don't relate your strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, that's one of the key takeaways. But the main thing that I want to talk to you about with this particular example is, don't create a loop in your answer. It could be, an answer which which you would have formed for why MBA, which is my biggest achievement, so on and so forth. There could be hundreds of questions, let's say. But what we generally end up doing a couple of times is we create a loop. We say that, one thing is a derivation of other thing, and the second thing is the derivation of the first thing, right? And we would be stuck in that particular loop because interviewers are very smart of catching these loops in your answers, right? So don't create a loop in your answer. Number one thing, right? Number two, I think, Anupam Mittal, speaks, I think, this meme speaks for itself. Why do you want to pursue MBA? Because, it is my passion and I always wanted to MBA as a kid. Don't go with cliche answers. Okay, don't go with, answers that everyone knows, right? You need to have very concrete answers to any question, that is asked to you, right? And you cannot just bring in the element of feeling, passion, gut, and so on. By the way, that is very, very important. But you also need to bring in the element of data, bring in the element of quantitative analysis of why exactly are you taking this decision. That is data-driven decision making, right? So have those particular elements also in your answer. So create your own story, right? Why do you want to pursue MBA? Don't give cliche answer. Talk about, once upon a time I was, solving this particular problem for my client, and which involved a lot of elements of operations. I come from the engineering background, but that project gave me an opportunity to actually learn a lot about operations, right? I used to work directly with the operations team or with the project manager. And with time, I actually got a lot of clarity and understood why exactly are we doing this project? What is the end goal that, that we are helping the users achieve, right? I understood a lot about PERT analysis, about operations management, supply chain management, logistics, and so on and so forth, right? And that is something which was a trigger. I learned a lot, and then and now I really want to learn more through through an MBA program. And this is something that I want to do post my MBA program, right? So create your own story. around, that particular thing. No, but don't go with cliche answers. That's the second part to it. Suppose, this question is asked to you, tell me about your work experience. And you speak continuously for 1 minute. This is the exact feeling that the recruiter is, or the interviewer is going to have. See, you don't know the interviewer. And by the way, it's not really, something that you should ask as a question that, can I know your name, or can I know which college you're from? Don't ask these questions, right? Unless the interviewer or the professor tells you in the CAP process, at least, right? So they would have a very different background. Now, given their work experience, obviously they know a lot about a lot of things, but then always believe to communicate without using a lot of jargons, without using a lot of technical terms. That is something, which we call plain English. Okay. So whenever you talk about anything, be it your work experience, be it a specific project, or be it your educational details whatsoever, that depends on the question, by the way. Always try to use the language as simple as possible so that the communication is very, very effective. Okay. So it's not about, speaking continuously for 1 minute. It's about speaking technical jargons or avoiding technical jargons a lot. Okay. So that's number one thing. Number three thing, by the way, avoid too much of jargons. Obviously, see, if you are coming from an IT company, we'll be talking about, maybe some sort of language or tool on which, you were maybe coding or supporting the team, right? But don't go into too much of technical details in the first part of your answer unless it is asked. So for example, let's say you work in some operations profile or IT profile. I'll take examples of both these things, right? And you are working actually in the, let's say in the operations profile, you're working on the logistics management and inventory management. And there are a lot of technical things that you do, a lot of technical processes that you follow. Similarly, let's say if you have experience on the IT side, you work on maybe some programming language or some framework, let's say, React, Node, something around that. So don't get into the details of the very same, right? Don't talk about the latest API, that you were working on and how exactly is that helping the clients. Unless it is very much asked to you that, can you explain to me, can you talk about this project in detail? Then you go in that particular, in that particular zone. But try to avoid too much of jargons in the first part of your answer, right? So that's number three thing. And finally, the fourth tip, that we can go ahead with, don't give random excuses. Don't, because this might be the first interview for you, and you would think, that, hey, even if I, try to just dodge the question, give some random answer, the interviewer would not be able to catch it. I think these people have taken more than thousands of interviews, or at least 500, pretty sure of that. So if you try to give random excuses, the interviewer, they will actually catch your answer, pretty much easily, right? So stop giving random excuses, right? Try to be honest, try to be honest around why did you leave your job? Why is there a year gap in your, let's say, in your profile? You prepared for IIT, you were not able to get into IIT, not a problem. Don't take that particular thing as a failure. Okay. Don't don't get into creating random stories which have no sense. Be honest, but again, don't be too honest, right? This is something, which I generally, talk to, or tell my students as well in my dedicated program, that the interviewer is not your friend. Okay, the interviewer is a professor, right? If you be honest, that will be respected. If you try to be over honest, that is not a bad thing, but you might end up saying something which should not be said in an interview, right? So for example, I'm just creating a fake story for the sake of it. Suppose, you left your job because there was a toxic culture in the previous company, right? Why did you leave your job? Because you can see, that I got another opportunity and it was better, than the previous one. So I decided to leave my job. But then don't be over honest to say, that there was too much of a toxic culture and my manager, was kind of thrashing me and bullying me because of a lot of things. So the question could be back to you. Did you even try to reach out to anyone in the team and solve that particular problem? Right? Did you try to, go to HR? Did you try to find a solution to that particular problem? Right? So don't be over honest in such scenarios. Okay, you left the job because of probably two reasons. Number one, the culture was not good. And number two, then you decided to find a better job and you did find a better job. So you left the job, right? So talk about the positive reason and not too much of a negative reason, right? So be honest, but don't be too much honest, right? So that's around that. Okay, finally, let's talk about few WAT and GD tips. Okay. And by the way, there are a lot of interview tips and that are still left to be talked about. And if you're interested, the workshop is there for you, special Shabbos, that's tomorrow. So let's talk about written aptitude, written ability test, and group discussions. Okay. So what are the things that could help you? Now, see, there could be anything, any topic could be given to you in WAT or GD. So the first question you could ask to me, I'll say it up front. If I go through hundreds of resources or hundreds of topics of current affairs, and if I read a lot around, the basics of management, will I be able to clear, or perform well in WAT and GD? Yes, you will be. But then essentially, it's not just about the content now, it's also about how do you think dynamically of something and how do you actually write about it and or speak about it, right? So these are few frameworks, by the way, which will help you write a good WAT and also perform well in your group discussions, right? Obviously, there could be any topic that could be given to you which you have not heard of, which you were not prepared for. So always have few strategy in your mind, few strategies or a couple of frameworks in your mind that will help you gather the content, gather ideas. It could even be for extempore, by the way, right? But then there should be something that you have in your bucket, that you are able to pull it and use that particular, concept or use that particular framework in order to perform well in your WAT and GD. And in the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll be talking about these frameworks, right? So number one, it's very common framework. It's 5W1H. Okay. Suppose the topic, that has been given to you is, let's say, the Great Resignation, and you don't know too much about it, right? How do you actually, structure your answer around that? So what you will think is, okay, what is Great Resignation? Okay, when did this happen? Why exactly is it happening? Okay, or why exactly did that particular thing happen? Where exactly, did that particular phenomenon occur for the very first time? How exactly is it impacting employees or companies, so on and so forth? And who are, let's say, major stakeholders in that particular, the topic which is given to you. This is how you can use 5W1H framework to talk about anything. Okay. Budget. Suppose, you don't know much about budget, but then essentially, what exactly is budget? When was it, let's say, launched? And, why exactly the government releases budget? What exactly is the part of the budget, right? So talk about that. And by the way, with this second example, what I also want to talk to you about is you cannot include each and every keyword. So, where exactly was the budget announced? That is not really important. Why exactly is the budget announced? That is also not really important. But what was the budget all about? That is very, very important. And how is it going to impact, multiple people in, internally to the country, right? Or multiple, departments, let's say. That is also very, very important. So with respect to budget, what and how keywords are very important, but the other keywords are not important. So don't run behind each and every keyword. Depending on the topic, you will be able to figure out which keywords of this 5W1H framework are really important for you. Okay, so that's it. Second, once you're done with 5W1H framework, what you can also think about is pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so what are the pros of using social media and what are the cons of using social media if your topic is anywhere around social media? Okay, if your topic is anywhere around 5G, what are the advantages of 5G? What could be the disadvantages of 5G? Okay, so that is again, that can help you structure answer and that can help you grab a point, about anything, about any topic, right? So think around this particular thing as well. EPF, something, a framework which I generally use in a lot of my, workshops, past, present, and future. Suppose, again, let's say the topic is anywhere around global warming, let's say, a very basic topic. So how exactly, has, this particular topic, or what is the scenario of global warming, or what has been the scenario of global warming in past? Okay. What exactly is the scenario in present, and how if we don't, stop, let's say, these industrial activities and so on and so forth, what could be the implications in future? Okay. So talk about the timeline, or think about the timeline of that particular topic that is given to you. Okay. So for example, the topic would be COVID-19. So we'll talk about past, present, and future. What if the topic is how has COVID-19 impacted your life or impacted life of students, who are pursuing MBA, right? So talk about what MBA was, in general. So that is the past. What MBA has become now, the present scenario in COVID-19. And given a mix and match of both these things, how do you think MBA program is going to be in the future and add value to the students as a whole? That is the future. Okay. So use this PPF framework as well. Okay. I'll come to this question for sure. Someone has asked questions on the live chat, but yeah, this is how, you use the PPF framework in order to think through an answer or even write an answer in WAT. Okay. So that's it. And this is another framework, probably the last one that I have in my bucket, or the second last, that is ICU. So this is something, which could be used in terms of experienced professionals when they're talking about, their work, and it could be, if there is any topic, be it in VAT on GD or extempore about any industry. So let's pick example of fintech. So fintech is really booming these days, right? So what if there is a topic around fintech? Okay, so talk about industry. Talk about what sort of companies are present in that particular industry. And finally, these companies are able to add value in what way to the users. Okay, so how exactly users are able to achieve their user goals by using the products and services of companies in the fintech industry. Okay, so this is again, suppose you come from IT industry, suppose you come from FMCG industry, let's say, right? There could be a question asked to you, okay, Rahul, what do you think is the future of, FMCG industry in India? Or what do you think is the future of edtech industry in India, right? So this is how you can talk about or think through that particular question, right? Okay, it's, it's related to probably my company or my industry. So this is how I'll structure my answer. I'll use the ICU framework. I'll talk about the industry as a whole. How exactly is it performing? I'll talk about few major players, in this particular industry, and how exactly, let's say, if I belong to that, if I belong to one of those companies, what is the value proposition of my company, what is something unique that we are doing, and essentially how are we helping, or how the companies essentially work on solving the problems for users. Now the users could be end users. I mean, it could be B2C, someone like you or me, or it could be B2B, like a business is helping other businesses solve their business problems, right? So think, maybe you can use the ICU framework like this in order to structure answer around, any question that in which you think the ICU framework can fit, right? And finally, we will talk about the last framework that we have, the PESTEL. Okay, there could be, let me think, of a topic in which we can use the PESTEL framework. Okay, okay, so I think this is sort of a hot topic also because of the the new things that came in the budget. So let's talk about cryptocurrency. Let's talk about mining. Okay, so you could talk about what could be the political impact or political implications of let's say mining current cryptocurrencies, or this 30% tax on this particular on profits that you or revenue that you generate from cryptos. What is the economical impact of it? What could be the social impact of it? Technological, legal, environmental, and so on. So mining, obviously, mining bitcoins or mining cryptos generally, takes a lot of energy, right? It takes a, so it has some sort of, environmental impact for sure. What could be the legal impact, in your country, or, yeah, in your country, in which you are doing that particular activity. So think through these 6 keywords as well. That's the idea that I want to give for you. Is there any political implication or any political impact, of this particular, the topic that is being given to you, and similarly for the rest of the keywords, right? So, yeah. So, these are the frameworks. Let me, just help you go through the very same 5W1H, what, when, why, where, how, who. Okay. By the way, just telling a story, I think this framework, it's 2022. So it would be precisely 116 years, if I'm not wrong, which I could be, not a problem, but I think it's precisely 116 years earlier. This thing was told by Rudyard Kipling in one of his poems that a man should always have six friends, something around that. What, when, why, where, how, who, right? So yes, this essentially helps a lot and would help a lot, in order to structure answers. 5W1H framework talk about plus minus, advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons, past, present, and future analysis, the timeline of anything that is given to you. The ICU framework, industry, company, and users, how exactly the industries and companies are adding values to the lives of the users, right? That's there. And finally, the pestle framework, what could be the political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental impact of the topic, that has been given to you. So that's all from my side, a quick session that we were able to successfully wind up in just 30 minutes. If you think that, I was running through the session, don't worry, you are anyway, going to get the recording. It's on YouTube. So just go through it on 0.75, 0.5x, not a problem. So I have few questions in this particular area. So someone said, if someone is coming from different background and want to pursue career in finance, want to change his profile 360-degree, how do interviewers see this? That is not a problem, right? So for example, if you're coming from a background which is chemical engineering, okay, yeah, if you're having a background, which is in chemical engineering, but then let's say you are totally interested in marketing or finance, that isn't bad. What is really important is what made you switch. What are your reasons, right? That could be, again, maybe you started developing interest into something, you attended few workshops, let's say few webinars, you did some sort of a project, or you helped your one of your friends in that particular project, that he or she was doing in this domain, and you started, let's say, gaining interest, and you started reading a lot of material, you went through a couple of blogs, you talked to a few industry experts or few MBA students, and finally you got the clarity that, hey, this is something that I would really want to pursue. And yes, that also aligns with my skills, right? So skill alignment is something which is very, very important, right? If you just speak out of the blue, that and you're talking about 360-degree, let me tell you something about 0 degree, so no change, but it's still how you can destroy your answer. So suppose you come from a BCom background, right? Or even better, you pursued BFIA, that is Bachelor in Finance and Investment Analysis, right? And now you want to pursue MBA in Finance, right? But you have no idea of why you actually want to get into finance, why you went into BFIA program at the very first place. That is how even things can go wrong. So even if the change is 0 degree, 1 degree, or even completely 360-degree, have a proper answer, have a proper reason of why exactly did this happen, right? And how is that aligned with your skills, soft skills, not really hard skills, because you obviously want to gain a lot of hard skill during your MBA, a lot of domain knowledge and expertise, but how this aligns with your soft skill is what is really, really important, right? Okay. I hope that answers Jim Jim. So her name is Jim Jim, right? I'm assuming that's not a real name, but yeah. Okay, so we have another question. Can you tell how to write an SOP? It's very, very simple. See, an SOP essentially is going to cover a couple of questions, right? What you need to talk about is, so let's say, if it's about why exactly do you want to pursue MBA from RB school? Suppose, that is something, that is a part of your SOP. How exactly do you talk about it? And there is precisely, sometimes word limit 250, 300, sometimes 500, sometimes there's no word limit, but try to make it, nowhere more than 500. 250 to 300 is very good. So the way you write it is, and I think I've pretty much covered in this entire, session, you talk about your story. Okay. So for example, you talk about, why exactly do you want to pursue MBA? Okay, what was the trigger? What did you learn? And what sort of internship or project that you did, and how exactly, and that's one of the reasons that you want to pursue this particular thing. Now, suppose, you also are asked to, talk about why exactly do you want to join this B school. So in that particular scenario, do a proper analysis of the B school, right? So the reason, I want to pursue my MBA in marketing from IMT Ghaziabad is because, okay, you talk about how IMT Ghaziabad has been performing great, in corporate competitions, let's say around marketing domain, right? How exactly the recruiters are impressed, and are regularly coming to IMT Ghaziabad, the quality of professors at IMT Ghaziabad, and so on and so forth, right? So that is something, the way you can structure the SOP and actually let the recruiter believe. See, uh, there is something which you should always understand. When we, and I'm sorry, I'm using the word recruiter, the better word is going to be interviewer, right? So when anyone, from the B school in which you have applied, they go through a SOP, they want to have a positive connect and they actually want to believe in your story, right? So the more detailed your answer is and the more aligned it is with, whatsoever the question is, the better it is going to be. Okay. So don't just talk about facts, also link those facts with, or also, talk about how you are linked in this particular, domain or whatsoever that particular question is, right? So more or less, Abhishek, more or less, that's how you can, write a good SOP. Okay. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? I can wait for next 5 minutes or so, not a problem. Anyone who would want to ask anything around anything. By the way, take care of your health in your interviews. Don't cough the way, like I'm doing right now, trying better to take care of my health. But yeah. Anyone with any other sort of a question? Or should we call it a go? Cool, cool. Am I losing my patience? I said I'll wait for 5 minutes, but then it's not even 30 seconds. And okay, let's wait. Let's wait for at least 30 to 40 seconds more. By the way, again, saying if you're someone who is, attending this sort of a workshop for the very first time, here is an opportunity for you to get yourself enrolled into special service workshop. 4-hour workshop that we are launching tomorrow from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's the timing. And yep, that's there. Cool. In that particular scenario, I'll call it the day. All the best for your CAP interviews and any other B school interview that you have. Okay, for all those students who are registered in my Catappa program and who have registered in this workshop, for this workshop, we are going to be tomorrow we are going to have a lot of fun around these 26 questions. We are going to talk about, and we are going to just go through answer templates. We are going to evaluate what's the better answer, what's not the better answer, the right answer, the wrong answer, things around that, what you should talk about, what you should not talk about. And after attending tomorrow's workshop, I think you are going to be pretty much with 4 C's, that we talked about: confidence, content, clarity, and communication. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me in this workshop. Wish you all the best for all your interviews that you have, aligned for your B school. Take care. Good night.